Hello and welcome to Storyboard. As we come to the end of the year, we're doing a special talking to three of the most powerful people in the media agency business. We have Sam Balsara, Shashi, Sinha and Srini. And between them, they control about 70% of all the organized buying in the country. I'll begin with Sam and ask him what he thinks of next year. Sam, how do you see 2015?
Well, next year, as I see it, I would be extremely bullish. I think it is the year of India very clearly. I think India has already stolen a big march and is now the center of the globe. I think we have got global attention thanks to the new BJP government. I think sentiments are already quite high. And I think although these sentiments have not yet translated into good business on the ground, I'm reasonably confident that beginning next financial year, I think this high sentiment is going to translate to good business. So I would think next year for business in India, it's going to be really good. And if it's good for business, it's good for advertising.
Right. And would you put a number to that? What kind of growth could we see next year in advertising?
I think for the numbers, I've yet to see the December figures, and after that we will put a number to it. But I think enough to say for the moment that it would be very good times ahead, and we can be reasonably confident of that. I don't think there has ever been a time in India in the recent past when we have been so confident about the future as we are today.
Right. Shashi, do you echo Sam's
Definitely
sentiments?
so. I mean, everyone's talking about the new budget. They're expecting a great budget to come in place, and that will jumpstart things. To qualify, as Sam said, it's not that things are great on the ground. FMCG companies, which is actually the heart of our business, they're still struggling. The volume growths are not there. And finally, it's all about volume growth. But we are hopeful that all that will turn in 2015. So I do expect 15% growth or so. The one thing which I want to mention for our industry is going to have a big impact is digitization. Digitization has already kicked in, and this, if it starts impacting TV revenues in some way, it will impact television rates. So I think overall 14 to 15% growth, combination of volume and value both, I think is to look for in 2015.
14-15%, and Martin Sorrell will be looking at you very interestingly.
Actually, it's quite interesting because 2015 is, globally people are saying it's going to be probably the best year over the last 7-8 years. Actually, it's being positioned as a revival year of sorts. If this year globally the ADEX has grown by around 4%, next year it's expected to grow around 5%. Closer home, if you look at APAC, this year I think it's around 6%, next year around 7%. So everywhere there's a bit of an uptick. As far as India is concerned, like Sam and Shashi have said, obviously there's a lot of optimism. As far as our initial estimates go, this year was obviously a relatively good year, I would say, 12.5% kind of a growth, thanks to elections, thanks to e-com and all of that. Next year, as per our early indications, it looks like another 12.5% kind of a number, which is not bad considering that there's not going to be elections next year, so you're not going to get that kind of a differential. So all said and done, I think it's going to be a good year, but I think for things to really start happening, maybe we are a year away.
Right. Now, Sam mentions that overall the optimism, we've never had a more confident period in the recent past. Are you seeing that translate to confidence that your clients seem to have? Or is there a lag?
Yeah, I think, firstly, I think it differs by sector, it differs by client. And secondly, I think overall, yes, there is a bit of a lag even now. I think people are quite excited with a lot of the announcements. People are excited with the intent the government is showing. But I think a lot of that needs to translate to stuff actually happening on ground. So I think the first 4-5 months of next year is pretty crucial to see whether some of these policies are actually translating into real change on ground to benefit businesses. FMCG is still under pressure, so they are even today about 1/3 of the total ADEX. So for the ADEX to really start firing, you need FMCGs to fire.
What about auto, staying with you?
Auto's actually seen a pretty good 2014, and we expect a pretty good 2015 as well. I think a lot of things are auguring well for the auto sector, and in fact we estimate this year auto to grow at about 17-18% and maybe stick to that number next year as well. There are about 20 odd launches which are being planned, so it looks like it's going to be a good year for auto. Yeah.
Right. Back to you, Sam. If this is the macro picture, how do you see individual media performing next year, as in TV versus print versus digital. We've been talking about a boom in digital, but really it's not reached a, say, 15% of AdX or 20% of AdX. Do you see that changing in 2015?
Oh, I would disagree with you. I think there is a boom in digital as I see it. After all, we have, I think in the last 5 years, digital has grown at rates of 50% to
From a small base.
35%, no doubt on a very small base. And from nowhere, we have now reached 10% of the total market. So, as I see it, I think the digital boom is going to continue. Obviously, as the base gets bigger, the rate of growth will come down. I mean, it may be difficult to do, 50% growth now, but I think the growth will continue. And an interesting dimension that I'd like to add is that, digital companies are also now relying on traditional media. I think a lot of the good times we saw last year is thanks to digital companies, e-commerce companies discovering the power of television
And print.
and print. So I think that's quite an interesting new development, that whilst digital on its own is growing, I think traditional media is going to hold on to its own. And what better vindication of this than digital companies themselves, adopting television and print, or embracing television and print in a very big way, and more importantly, seeing results.
Shashi, here, I think there's general agreement that digital will grow significantly in 2015. If digital grows, somebody's got to lose. So what happens to the overall pie? How do you see it?
So I think what is happening in most companies, CMOs realize the power of digital. It's always from SA, so they'll be the last to embrace digital, and they're embracing. So therefore, the growth of digital is coming. I don't think it will be a zero-sum game, because in my way, the way digital will grow will be not necessarily paid vanilla advertising. It will be a lot of other stuff. So whether CRM, whether some response element, so which are budgets which are spread out all over. So I mean, today mobile is a big thing, and growth will come from mobile for a variety of reasons. So I think I personally am not the typical classical display advertising is one part. I'm not sure whether the quantum growth will come from there. There is performance, and that's the next big frontier. So I still tend to believe while the overall growth in digital will come, how much will come from just like-to-like display advertising, digital will be used differently, and therefore it's not going to be a threat in that sense to regional print or say television. Television may not grow by volumes dramatically, but television definitely grow by value. Regional print, the surface has not been scratched yet.
Right.
So I don't think there'll be a trade-off happening.
It's interesting, you used the phrase regional print twice,
Yeah.
and you didn't say print without the adjective. So what about non-regional
So
print?
I think it's underpenetrated. I mean, today the power of print, as Sam alluded to, the e-commerce companies, are using print in a big way. And I think more than television, print is what is relevant for them. They can actually measure the performance. I think it's under leveraged with education going up. While it's all fine to say digital will penetrate small town India, rural India, I'm not saying. As you know, regional print has been curtailed by circulation, which has been held by the publishers themselves rather than the demand. The suppliers, and they realize the potential now. So as they start increasing circulation for competitive pressures and a variety of the reasons, the leverage will come.
Right.
I really feel it's under leverage in this country.
Right. While we're talking print, you've seen Hindu taking a few tentative brave steps in increasing their cover price.
Right.
Which is perhaps one of the reasons why publications do not want to increase circulation. The more they sell at a low price, the more they lose. So do you see that as a trend, that print will get brave enough to sort of increase cover prices?
I think very soon there's not going to be an option because if you look at again macro trends, I think English language print has definitely been hit by digital. Actually, within that also, if you kind of dissect the numbers, I think it's the business press, English business press, which has got affected the most, followed by the English broadsheets or the dailies. So I think sooner or later they'll have to look at alternate revenue streams, and obviously subscription is the only other way to go, an increasing cover price. But having said that, I think like Shashi said, I think regional publications are doing extremely well. In fact, we've seen over the last 2-3 years significant growths, and in fact, a lot of the big FMCG clients are today depending quite heavily on regional print to reach out to their audiences, which otherwise they would have traditionally done through television. I think it's not only the growth of readership and all of that, but I think a lot of these publications are also extremely innovative in terms of the kind of offerings they come to advertisers with. For example, a lot of local level activation, etc., that gets bundled along with the advertising space. So yeah, regional print I think is in a pretty robust
Yes, Sam,
shape.
you have a point of view on this.
I am a firm believer in the principle of 50-50. I think media is fortunate to be one of the businesses that has the potential to have two streams of revenue. One is subscription and one is advertising. And for a long time in the past, generally it was always 50-50. I think then it began to move, and then it became a ridiculous 80-20 or 90-10.
Absolutely.
I think today, as Srini said, I think with cost pressures, with newsprint prices, with the wage board which is supposed to have happened last year, I think newspapers now have to focus a little bit more on profitability, because only if they are profitable then would they have the resources to expand and go more deeper. So I have no doubt that we are going to see an increase in newspaper prices to the reader, and that may not be a bad thing, because just increasing circulation and readership without profitability may not be a sustainable thing in the long term.
Do you see any significant developments in measurement, whether on the print side or on the TV side in 2015?
Well, yes, of course. As you know, I think there is a significant development in TV measurement. The industry has come together in the form of BARC, and I believe in terms of technology, some huge steps forward have been taken. The significant thing that concerns me is, and I'm not entirely clear as to how we would move from one to the other. I mean, as is well known, both ourselves and our client friends are obsessed with ratings and rates, and consequently the CPRP. And we have deals in place, we have agreements with client, and suddenly, if the measurement changes, I think the transition period is going to be a little chaotic, and maybe the time has now come for us to seriously think about it. Also, I think the second issue in my mind, which is unresolved, is pricing. I mean, although we are so close to launch, I have no idea what the pricing is. So I hope the board of BARC puts down some founding principles in this area pretty soon. But I have no doubt that technologically some fantastic advances have been made, and hopefully all that will result in a more accurate representation of what is happening on the ground.
Right. And Sam, I'll come back to you and we'll discuss print. Shashi, one of the worries I have is, BARC will come. I agree. Nobody's got a doubt we'll see BARC next year. But what happens when people compare, say, the pecking order in BARC versus the pecking order in TAM? Finally, despite all that all of you said in the TechCom in TAM, not to compare apples and oranges, people compared it, and that has led to the impasse that we saw. So in the IRS. So what happens to if people compare?
So it's a moot point. I mean,
Right.
comparisons are obviously because the commercial interest is at stake.
Absolutely.
So once BAC comes out, firstly we working towards. Not only are we hoping and praying, but we're also working towards ensuring BAC comes out. See, globally, what happens whenever transition has happened, it takes 3 to 4 years for a system to stabilize. In India, because of the pressure and the environment the way it is, we try to get our show on the road in a year and a half. Plus, we'll be under scrutiny from the day we launch, whatever the day. I mean, hopefully in the next 4-5 months we'll launch. So I think there will be some stability time. Coming back to what you said that listen, there will be comparisons between past and present. It's but obvious. People who are gainers will always want to talk about it. People who are losers will debunk the system.
Or go to court. That is the problem.
So go to court is in this case relatively not that easy because I'm not saying it's not going to happen because they're all constituents, they're part of the BAC board before the ratings go. What all undertaking besides that I'm not getting.
Right. People who are part of the MRUC TechCom and so on, they've gone to court.
Yeah, so I don't want to say on camera the comparisons are odious. You learn from others' mistakes.
Right.
I'm a smart man who learns from others' mistakes, so I will not go that path of what will happen, what will not happen. I'm not going that path.
Right, sure.
But having said that, definitely that's something which everyone's alive to. Beyond a point, I don't have a ready answer that if suppose channel A's rating drops dramatically or shows differently, then what will their response be? I must just say this, that they're all constituents, they're all key members of the BAC board. They've all been part of it. The whole process is very inclusive, which is not to say that IRS were not inclusive. And we have tried to ensure a fair degree of transparency in the process all through, which is there. That's a real issue. What you raise could be an issue, but I'm sure we'll contend with when we come to at that point in time when people decide to take us on. Don't forget it's an industry body. So far, the player was a private body. And there is no case of someone going to court against TAM in the last so many 20 years of its existence. So think about it, So
They only threatened to go to court.
Sorry?
They only threatened to go to court.
But no one's gone to court there. So I think this is an industry body with all
NDTV did, and in the
yes.
US.
NDTV did, but then they really didn't go. They
went to court, it was thrown out.
Yeah.
So,
So I think I'm not sure whether they'll go that path because the industry ecosystem. I personally feel that BAC has to get its act together.
Right.
That's the thing. We have to ensure that our processes are foolproof, and there are many challenges. Not an easy one to pull off.
Right.
So if you can get all, as Sam said, the technology is far superior. But now the truth is in the detail. The God is in the detail.
What about the pricing? Again, Srini and I were talking about the pricing. Sam has brought up the pricing. Nobody has a clue on the
So
pricing.
I tell you where I'm coming from the pricing point of view. That, as you correctly said, the board is.
All of you will have to provision now.
Yeah.
If you're going
So
to pay
let me put it this way.
How much have you provisioned? Is that enough for
So
what
I tell
they
you
want?
where we're coming from, Anant. On the pricing, as we are concerned, I know for a fact that the entire ecosystem is very reliable in what the current system is charging.
Right.
I know what we have delivered, and I must say that the team must take credit for that. Is that in 20,000 meters with the new technology, the entire ecosystem is still within control of what is currently being charged. So one is the cost which we managed to keep under control. Pricing is a board decision for whatever reason. They're not playing their hand for a variety of reasons. Could be competitive pressures, could be whatever. So that the board, as Sam says very correctly, at some point in time has to take a call and place hand on the various constituents of the board. But the larger point which I want to make, which I've been constantly saying, the entire model is such where the prices have been kept under control.
Right.
I mean, the costs have been kept under control.
Srini, you have a point of view on this measurement system in general. Where measurement could be going.
Yeah, I think 2015 all said and done, it's going to be a bit of a challenging year on the measurement front, especially on TV, because whatever you may say about BAC, obviously it's going to have great technology, and I think Shashi and team are doing a great job just putting the whole thing together. But I think just managing the whole transition, moving from a system that all of us have got so used to for the last 15 years to a completely new system, where everything is different, right from the basis, the sampling, the technology and everything else, is going to be a challenge. In fact, I think one thing which we still need to do as stakeholders and as industry bodies, I think we need to spend time now putting down protocols in terms of how we're going to manage the process. I think we spend a lot of time in terms of the technology, a lot of time in terms of all the other aspects of the new measurement system. But I think what all stakeholders need to really do now, because it's going to launch in the next few months, is how are we going to manage the transition? What are going to be the rules of the game? What are going to be the do's and don'ts amongst the various stakeholders? Because the last thing we want is a year full of disruptions. We've had a taste of that in 2013. It was the year where there were lots of issues every now and then, which kind of disrupted the working of the industry.
And 14.
14 for print.
Yeah, 14 for print, yes, but 13 for TV. But I'm saying maybe we should preempt that so that all of us can just get on with life.
Okay, now staying on measurement, but going to print, how do you see that panning out? That's again complete imbroglio. Now the data is what, 15 months old, Sam?
That's right.
What is
yeah.
the last reliable
Yeah.
data? 15 months or so.
That's right.
What happens in print? I mean,
That's right.
we're talking bark, but
Yeah.
no noise heard about.
Yeah, well. Of course, there was the whole revalidation exercise that was carried out on the first set of data that came out, and I
Right.
think we still haven't fully seen what that committee has come back with. But I think if you ask me personally, this is my personal point of view, I think we should go back to the drawing board as far as print measurement is concerned. I think there have been too many questions asked off late in terms of methodologies, in terms of some of the techniques we're using. And I think there is an opportunity for India to actually maybe leapfrog, in terms of research, in terms of how do you actually measure readership and some of these other parameters in media, some of the other markets. And I think we should probably adapt to, some of the more modern techniques, using technology, using maybe the mobile phone, and maybe start thinking, maybe we can experiment to start with maybe one region or one zone or whatever. But I think we need some experimentation, we need some innovation, because I think going back on, older techniques which are not pleasing anyone is not helping.
Tell me, then till then, how do you make decisions? Till these great decisions are taken, how do you negotiate? How do you buy? How do you plan?
Yeah, well,
if there's no new data available.
Yeah, I would say, to an extent, the problem is not that serious, because unlike television where we look at data in a very dynamic fashion, in print, the data doesn't move that often. So, planners and buyers are not used to getting data, too frequently. But having said that, obviously we can't also wait for too long to get new data. So I think, people just use time-tested models and, whatever research and whatever other studies they have. So far, at least, I don't think it's impacted, our view to print or our spends on print or our client spends on print. But I think sooner or later we'll have to fix the problem.
Can I come in, since I probably
Yeah.
privy the more these gentlemen? So 3 weeks from now, I think the issue there, as you correctly said, is about managing the constituency. So all the changes which have happened after the revalidation, coincidentally I was somewhere involved in the revalidation,
Right.
and all what has been put together and the way forward. Srini talks about technology, what are the technology changes being made. There is a stakeholder meeting being called towards the end of this month, where the basic decision will be taken, on how to progress. So as you know, there is a lot of technology, CAPI and stuff like that, which is put in, and further how to announce it and how to align all the stakeholders. That will happen, because finally in any industry forum like this, one is to what you do on the ground, second is to carry people with you. So I think if MRUC and RACI are successful in pulling that off, then we'll be back on stream. If not, then we'll think through what needs to be done.
You're a very heavy user of print. Lot of your
Yeah.
brands are very heavy print users. So
It is, we have to resolve it. It cannot be any longer the way it is running just now. I may also want to add that we are in early stages at this point in time. But again, some of us are involved on this panel where we are looking at web measurement of, at least to start with print, and in some way integrate all this, whether
Right.
it's television, whether it's print, whether it's web.
Right.
So I think hopefully, as you correctly said, 2015, there's going to be a landmark here from a measurement standpoint point of view, not only television, but integrating web onto it,
Sure.
and print, getting a print act on the,
Right.
getting the show on the road. Obviously, there'll be a period of churn, there'll be a period of transition, but finally the roadmap is clear.
right. From these two media, we go to the digital medium, and that is perhaps suffering from over measurement. There's so much data available that one doesn't know. A lot of people don't know what sense to make of the data.
No, I think very clearly in digital,
There's no
the-
yardstick there. There's no-
whilst measurement by itself may be a challenge, the bigger challenge, and that would benefit digital a lot in my view, is if there was an industry accepted way of combining digital with television and print, because I think what is required now is to prove to the market that digital can add substantially to a print and TV plan. And to my mind, whilst individual agencies may have their own individual sort of systems to try and arrive at some sort of approximation in some measure or the other, I think there is also the need to have an industry accepted model of having the combined reach, and I think that would, in my view, substantially help the cause of digital.
If I may
Right.
add to what he's saying, so at this juncture, as we speak, there are two big initiatives happening. So one is Srini and me are leading on ABC, where exactly what Sam said, that print measurement, at least circulation, we are saying if we can do web measurement along with print. I think the blueprint is ready. We just have to work out the costs. If the costs fall in line, then we will, as early as April, we may roll it out.
Right.
And BAC also has done pilots for.
So when you say print measurement,
For example, a newspaper publication has a online version. So measurement of that through an ABC rated.
what about the offline version?
Offline? In any case, ABC is doing or.
ABC only if the paper subscribes to it.
Correct.
Right.
So, but you know, you were surprised most papers do. Magazines where the issues are. But what we are doing is independent of that, ABC is setting up a web measurement service as it exists all over the world.
Right.
So that's the pilot where both of us are leading, and we're in pilot stage at this point in time. But we're pretty far gone. We're pretty advanced, and hope and pray if the costs work out, then we will obviously launch it
Right.
early 2015 sometime. As you know, the BAC technology enables you to do digital video measurement,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
which is also in place. So we, as industry bodies, fortunately the three of us are there in most industry bodies. So you know, we're ensuring that there is a back-end. So again, if BAC takes off, it's not a technology issue, it's not a pricing issue. It's just the focus of BAC
Right.
to ensure get television measurement going. But a lot of big broadcasters already putting pressure on us. Some of the news broadcasters, some of the big GC broadcasters saying, listen, you need to also simultaneously measure digital video.
Right.
So that also is ready. It's ready, it's just that you have to integrate it and get it. So it's not about getting it going, it's about sorting out your basics first and then launching it. So I think 2015, if we are lucky, of course anything can happen in this country, but if you're lucky, one is the measurement of print, web print, TV and
Digital
digital TV, all should happen simultaneously.
Then is there a chance that there's a sort of underswell of people wanting CPT in place
Yeah.
of CPRP? Now, is that...
Yeah,
Sorry, I had to
actually-
bring that up, Shashi.
Actually, related to this,
Especially if you're going to do all this integration, CPT perhaps makes more sense.
But actually, the shift that's happening at a let's say an advertiser end is that I think clients are more and more looking at outcomes rather than outputs.
Yeah. Right.
I think all this while, as an industry, we've been focusing on measuring outputs, which is the reach and frequency and GRP and all of that. But I think what digital media has done, the fact that you can actually attribute the effect of advertising to the input, is that learning or that principle is now trying to is being applied across the board. So the whole focus now is on outcomes. And for outcomes, I think the challenge for agencies like us is to actually build the right systems, get the right people, get the data scientists or whoever else who can make sense of all the data that you're getting and translate that to outcomes. So I think that's a shift that we will see going forward.
You've spent a fortune in the last 2-3 years on measurement, digital measurement, as Group M and within your constituent agencies. So are we going to see are you going to reap the investments in 2015?
Yeah, I think we already started to reap the investments because we saw quite a significant shift in the last 18 months, I would say, towards digital. In fact, if I look at some of the internal numbers, it's almost grown, I would say, 10 times in certain cases. So I think very clearly for us the focus is digital going forward, and I think today all of us are at a stage where it's not just one versus the other or an either or kind of a situation, but to actually integrate all your offerings and give clients a holistic kind of a solution. So I think while we have a lot of digital assets and we have digital measurement, etc., I think what we're really going to focus on is to integrate it a lot more with our core agency offering. The other area which is obviously gaining a lot of traction is listening and doing all the research using digital channels. I think, in fact, if you look at some of the younger planners today, they're very, very adept at picking up a lot of useful insights, looking at social media, listing social media. So I think that's going to be another huge focus area for us going forward. The third would be in terms of mobile. We've seen, again, in the last 1.5-2 years, a lot of traction. In fact, over 100 clients of ours today are actively running mobile-based campaigns. And mobile, in our estimate, already contributes about 20% of the total digital pie, and we see that only increasing. And in fact, I think a lot of the innovation in mobile is happening in India, because if we kind of compare notes with some of our colleagues in other markets, I think we are maybe a bit ahead of the curve, and we have an opportunity to take that further. So those would be some of our focus areas going forward.
I'll come back to you on that. In the sense, people will also have to be a focus area with all these changes, I guess. So, Shashi, what are you going to?
So, I think in a way, what Srini said in a way is slightly different. So, I think one of the key things that Srini mentioned earlier is about outcomes, client demanding outcomes. And while digital is important and we are taking whatever steps need to be taken in digital, but I think finally there is a soft end part to this. So, it's not only just digital budgets of outcomes. It's also about how do you convert those outcomes, how do you convert those digital leads into outcomes. I genuinely believe CRM is a big area to be in, and a media agency not ventured into CRM in that sense. And we have taken baby steps 2 years back, and we're building on it. But I genuinely believe that it may not be a big money spinner, but it will be for our clients a way of proving that we are not only talking about outcomes but capable of delivering outcomes.
Right.
So it's a great icing on the cake to have. I don't know how much of a contributor it will be in terms of revenues in 2015.
Right.
But definitely we have done pilots with some auto companies. As you know, we have a big play in auto.
Absolutely.
And we have done quite a few pilots. There is so in addition to the digital teams, this girl Farida, whom you know, is doing a lot of stuff for us in terms of the soft end. And I see big hope from that, big potential for that.
You know, Srini, you keep using the phrase core and non-core.
Right.
As in, you know, his core business is getting less core and his non-core business is becoming more core. And that's generally true of all media agencies now. No? If you look at it, what trading is becoming less and less of trading income. I meant it becoming less and less, and other income, digital and your mobile and so on, is growing rapidly. Is that an area that you're going to be focusing on,
Yes.
Sam?
No, I think I would say our focus is, you know, if the last decade, once advertising volumes began to grow up, I think the focus of the advertiser and therefore the focus of the media agency was on cost per contact and CPM and CPRP and CPT and all that. I think we've begun to realize that these ultimately could only be interim measures, and too much focus on these only helps the media owner.
Right.
What the advertiser really wants is sales and market share. We are spending some amount of time, effort and money on trying to understand what works in impacting that. And I think the olden belief that, you know, the more GRPs you give,
More share of voice.
the more sales you will get and the more market share you'll get is not necessarily true. I mean, within that there are lots of nuances, and it's quite important to discover those nuances. And I think future success will depend on our ability to discover these nuances.
Each of you, you know, you're talking about outcomes and you're talking about CRM, you're talking about the need to understand these outcomes. Is one of these derivatives that the people in your businesses will have to change? Is that one of the derivatives? You know,
Well,
the traditional
they don't have
planner,
to change, they
Right.
have to grow and they have to evolve and
Right.
they have to
Are all
keep
capable of
pace.
you know, it's a question that, you know, I
Yes,
tend to
I
tell
think so. I
people
think-
over 40, 45.
I think the people in media agencies are capable. I think because media is a young industry, I think we deal with young minds, we deal with open minds. It's not as if there is a history of 50 years in media as it is in creative. So, you know, it's only a 15-year-old industry in India. It's rapidly grown and rapidly evolved. So I would say, and I think all of us have lots of young people who we hire every year from, you know, institutes. So I think we have the necessary, you know, raw material.
Right.
I think it's a question of channelizing them in the right direction.
Right. You know,
It's a
Shashi
challenge.
and
It's a challenge.
Srini,
To tell you honestly,
yeah.
people is a challenge. While I agree with Sam, we have a lot of youngsters who are bright and good, but you cannot have so much, because finally there is a transactional side to our business, which is huge volumes. You know, India is a peculiar market, one of the few markets in the world where the volumes are disproportionate with the value. It's under leveraged market in that sense. So, so you have the quality talent, but to keep them motivated to ensure that, you know, they manage the transactional side also equally well. So my experience is, it's a challenge. The only way we try to overcome it is to create pockets of excellence and hope and pray through osmosis the whole organization's table moves up.
Right. Srini?
Well, actually, the media agency DNA is all about data, numbers, and analytics. So I think somewhere, you know, media agency folks have it in them, you know,
Right.
to generally look at numbers. But I think what's more important and what's really needed today is to have people who can actually look at the story that's emerging out of the numbers. And I think that's where, frankly, sometimes we find a bit of a challenge. So yeah, I think it's partly through training, partly through maybe getting people who worked in other industries who can actually make sense out of the data. Because in this day and age, one of the things we constantly keep hearing from our clients is enough of data. Tell us what's coming out of the data. What's the real insight? So to get to that insight, from where we are today, I think is what we need to do in terms of focusing on people. The other point we spoke about is the fact that the younger people in the organizations today are obviously a lot more knowledgeable about digital and all the latest trends and all of that. So one of the initiatives that we took last year, which is creation of the YCO, or the Youth Executive Committee at Group M, is actually worked pretty well for us. And coming back to the focus areas of next year, in fact, next year is going to be the third batch of YCO that we're going to induct. 15 of our young stars are going to sit alongside the EXCO and help us in all crucial decisions going forward.
Yeah, you didn't mention in any of this conversation your play into content. Yesterday the announcement of the HuffPo is a content play more than a trading play.
That's right.
So first with Srini, then two of you.
Yeah.
Is content going to become a big part of your business?
Yeah, the way we see it, I think the lines are blurring between media and content, especially when it comes to digital. And in fact, I think the biggest benefit of living in a digital era and working in a digital era is that media agencies are finally being able to move up the value chain, so to speak. So yes, we see content to be a very integral part of our offering. So we started a unit called Mashup last year, as you know, which is into digital video content production. And till date, we've made over 2,000 pieces of content. And today we offer a holistic solution combining content and media to a lot of clients as far as digital is concerned. Yeah, and the tie-up with Huffington Post is also another initiative we've taken in that direction, where we actually are able to actually sit and create solutions which are relevant for clients. Because I think more and more of our clients are pushing us to come back to them with well thought through holistic solutions that generate outcomes rather than media plans that give you reach and frequency.
Yeah, Shashi, are you making any
So
kind of
we have already crossed the path. We've crossed the Rubicon on content.
Right.
I think obviously for a large global network, when there are challenges of creative agencies as partners, so it's easier to, as Srini says, to come through the digital route, and we have done that. With Interactive Avenues, which is our company. It's a fully integrated company, and I think that story is over now. If you come to our award shows and see the kind of stuff we are doing, because all the creative capabilities on the broadcast side, the print side, and we are partnering them. So in my mind, it's no longer a point of discussion. I think any large company of our scale, and I'm sure for three of us I speak, on our behalf, we have crossed the Rubicon.
Right. So will that, if content is going to be such a focus, will we see different kinds of people hired on the content side, more creative people perhaps in media agencies?
Already, I mean, if you see our media agency, we have a large number of creative people embedded within client teams, not just in digital but also in conventional media. And I mean, that is how you see so much of outstanding stuff at media awards.
Right. Anyway, overall a pretty picture for
like Martin says, the mathmen and the madmen.
Yeah, absolutely. A pretty picture for 2015. And I think the only sort of cloud may be measurement if hopefully it will get solved. Hopefully everybody will see sense. But all those in media agencies, you can rest easy. Your jobs are safe. Nobody old is going to get sacked. Life is good. Thank you.